It's nice to have you all here. We're delighted that you would take the time to come to listen to, I think, an outstanding presentation. And I'd like you to remember a couple of words. I'll mention this a couple of times. And actually, before to make this, this gentleman that's going to speak has abundant exuberance, and he gave me a hat, so I thought I'd put this hat on to start the show. And this says, what does it say? Cafe Cosmos. This gentleman has a email address. All of you have email addresses. I think everyone knows. I even have an email address. And his email address is fooddude1@AOL.com. And he is indeed a food dude. He's a foodie. And I would also like you to remember this term, because I may not use it again, but he is a wild and crazy guy. So we're off and running this morning with a foodie, fooddude1@AOL.com, and a wild and crazy guy. But I did want to give you a quiz question today that might be on some professor's class, just in case some of you haven't heard this before. Some of you may know who I am, Clint Rappold. I'm a professor emeritus, and the quiz question is, do you know what the E stands for? E stands for to go. And the emeritus, do you know what that stands for? Deserves to go. But I'm glad I'm here. I would like to remind you that we have an informal session this afternoon, that if you can't get all your questions answered this morning, we would certainly encourage you to come. It's at 2:30 to 4 in Barron's. Feel free to come in late and leave early. There may be presents there. Mr. Breverman may indeed provide presents to get some people there. There will be some food, and we'd be delighted to have you come, and hope that you will give it serious consideration. I would also like to take this time to thank Wendy Gary, Aaron Uzer, and Shannon Burnett. These three women have worked very hard to assist me in putting this program together and do an outstanding job. And if they were here, I would ask them to stand and get a round of applause. Shannon's here, but they're all working so very hard. But thank you so much for all your assistance. I would also like to take this opportunity to introduce two previous Eric Hilton Distinguished Chair alumni lecturers, Mrs. Dorothy Nicholson, would you please stand, and Mr. Nick Massett. Thank you for being with us this morning. There are three alumni. I know two I've spotted, and one came in a little bit later. But I'd like to introduce Mr. Morris Masters. He is a graduate of the college, came here to listen to Mr. Breverman. Mr. Robert Ralston. Mr. Ralston was the general manager of the first and second gourmet night, for those of you participating in gourmet night. And Mr. Bill Bennett. Mr. Bennett, why don't you come on down up front, if you will, and have a seat with everyone. We're delighted to have you all here, the alumni. That was a very good vintage, that particular year. And hopefully you'll continue to think so after Mr. Breverman's speech. Okay. Again, good morning, and thank you for being here for our 10th Eric Hilton Distinguished Chair Alumni Lecturer in this lecture series. My name is Clint Rappold, and I'm pleased to let you know I have been here for 34 years at the Conrad and Hilton College of Hotel and Restaurant Management and the University of Houston. I would also like to give you a brief background on our endowed chairs before I introduce our Eric Hilton Chair Distinguished Lecturer. This college was the proud recipient in 1982 of a $21,350,000 grant from the Hilton Foundation over a 10-year period. Many things were provided by this grant. For example, a 94,000 square foot addition, which is called the South Wing, which houses laboratories, classrooms, offices, public space, the library and archive, and of course, Alumni Hall. That is where we're seated this morning, in room S104. As important as brick and mortar are, however, it should also be noted that there were 4 endowments provided our college in that grant. The 4 endowed chairs are the Conrad and Hilton Endowed Chair, currently held by Dr. Ron Nykiel, the Baron Hilton Endowed Chair held by our Dean John Bowen, the Eric Hilton Endowed Chair, yours truly was a previous holder of that chair, the Don Hubbs Professorship held by Dr. Stowe Shoemaker, and the first position that we were told to hire by Don Hubbs, who was president of the Hilton Foundation at that time, was a development officer, and the first development officer was Mr. Bill Heaton. Our current development officer is Mr. John Schultz. We also have had recent success with the addition of Speck's Charitable Foundation Professorship held by J. Alonza Abbott. So we have a total of 5. What is an endowed chair? And what does an endowed chair do for our college? An endowed chair assists the college in recruiting outstanding faculty to come to our college. It provides the opportunity to develop a standard of excellence that cannot be achieved only through credit hour generation and state funds. Ask any dean and they will assure you of that. It is a way of keeping score with other colleges, other hotel colleges. For example, how many endowed chairs does another hotel college have? You may not think about that, but you should. An endowed chair provides salary, benefits, travel, secretarial assistance, and graduate assistance. If managed well, the endowment continues to grow. Today, I believe a chair should be endowed at the $3 million level, although $1 or $2 million chairs are not refused. And I mention all of this to make you aware of how fortunate our young college is to have 5 endowed chairs. However, it is important that we receive additional endowed chairs in order to maintain our standard of excellence, to keep score with other hotel colleges, and to remind you of your responsibility but also opportunity to help your alma mater become the outstanding college of hotel and restaurant management in this country, if not, I would say, the universe. So you may very well have the ability to provide an endowed chair or influence companies or persons who have that ability during your lifetime. With that preface, please allow me to introduce our Eric Hilton Distinguished Chair Lecturer, Mr. Marty Breverman. You're not to come up yet, Mr. Breverman.
Sorry. Okay.
He's eager. He's primed. He's ready to go. It's always a privilege and pleasure to introduce one of your own. The person in this instance is Mr. Marty Breverman, a 1974 graduate of the Conrad and Hilton College of Hotel and Restaurant Management. Back then it was called a school. Mr. Breverman was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and while attending Boyce Community College for 1 year was encouraged by Mr. Ed Brown, director of the HRM program, to look at a brand new program in Houston, Texas, the Conrad and Hilton College of Hotel and Restaurant Management, and he did. Marty matriculated in 1971, and that means he started here, which was also the year of our first graduating class, 8 graduates. Mr. Breverman graduated in 1974 with a total of 39 graduates, and was one of the originals with the first gourmet night, which was held at the Shamrock Hilton. My initial acquaintance with Mr. Breverman commenced almost immediately, either 1972 or 1973. It was an exciting time for the college, for the North Wing was being constructed, and we moved into the North Wing in March 1974, the very year Mr. Breverman graduated. What do I remember about Mr. Breverman? Most of it I can't repeat. He was a very capable student that was always involved with college activities such as being treasurer of what we called then the Hotel Restaurant Management Association, and with Gourmet Night. He had what I would call abundant exuberance and was a latter-day Tom Sawyer, for he always had people wanting to help him because it looked like he was having so much fun. And I think hopefully that's what you're going to have this morning. Mr. Breverman has worked in the food service business since his graduation in 1974, and I believe has always known he wanted to own successful multi-unit companies. Along the way, he has been Executive Vice President of Hungry Tiger Seafood Restaurants in Los Angeles, Vice President of Food Services Carter Hawley Hale, Emporium Capital in San Francisco, and owner and president of Real Italian Inc., Louise's Trattoria in Los Angeles. He has designed and developed a variety of restaurants and food service facilities in the United States and abroad, some of which include the Los Angeles Music Center, food service at the J. Paul Getty Museum, and Tiger Seafood restaurants in Tokyo, Japan. Currently, Mr. Breverman owns Cosmos Grill, established in 1993. Cafe Cosmos, located in Temecula, California, and is chairman of the board and director of Louise's Trattoria Acquisitions Corporation, located in Los Angeles. I would be remiss if I did not mention persons who have assisted in defining his life further. His wife, Lindy, who will be joining us later today, and his 4 sons, Eric, Mark, Zachary, and Brian. One of whom has graduated from college as an engineer, another who will be graduating as an engineer but wants to become a lawyer, and 2 teenage sons who have accompanied their mother to be with us this very weekend. In my mind's eye, Marty Breverman is truly an entrepreneur, restaurateur extraordinaire. He has worked the corporate side of the food service business and has gradually transitioned into private ownership with 2 small multi-unit companies in Southern California. His success brings pride to our college, and we hope inspiration to all students, particularly those aspiring to be in the food service industry. His journey has been most impressive, and I am certain you will enjoy this unique story. So, please listen carefully, take notes, for I believe this outstanding entrepreneur restaurateur has much to offer in his remarks on his career journey to date in the hospitality industry. Mr. Breverman, thank you for being with us. Would you please welcome warmly one of our very own, Mr. Marty Breverman. Now you can come.
Well, thank you, Dr. Pohl. Well, I think you just gave my whole speech, so I can leave now. Thank you all for coming today. It's really a pleasure and honor to be here. Last night I was walking around campus, which was rather unusual, feeling like I had just started here, and I had the excitement. I was telling Dr. Pohl this morning, the excitement, not much different when I first started a school here. I was the first person that lived in my room in the Moody Towers. Have any of you lived in Moody Towers? Believe it or not, it was brand new then. I was the very first person in the room. I went and saw the room yesterday. They changed the room numbers though, but it doesn't look the same. And I was walking around, and I was looking at the campus, and I noticed all these buildings everywhere, including the one we're in today. When I graduated, this building had just been opened, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the students that gave one of the first tours of the hotel, believe it or not. So on to the story. So you want to get in the restaurant. That's me, by the way. So if I mess up on the slides, just say. Okay, so you want to get in the restaurant business. Are you all crazy? You must be. I do a lot of consulting, and when anybody ever tells me they want to get in the restaurant business, the first thing that I tell them is, no, you don't. Absolutely, no, you don't. Unless you're totally committed, have a hunger, no pun intended, and a passion for the business of serving people, and are willing to put yourself on the line every day of the year. That's where our school comes into play, and you should be proud to know that you're getting one of the finest educations available today to help you succeed in our ever-changing business. I'm so honored to be here today as the guest lecturer and to tell you about my business, the restaurant business, and my career. I graduated way back in 1974. You see some pictures. Someone's in the room here that I know. Rabbi, that's what he used to look. You're going to see what we all used to look like doing this thing. When I came to Houston, it was much different than it is today. The last time that I came here, which was in '99, I checked into the hotel, and I was talking to the desk clerk and asked her, and she asked me when I graduated. I told her I graduated in 1974, and I said, I know what you're thinking. And she said, well, yeah, that's before I was even born. And I said, no, that wasn't really what I was supposed to be thinking. I was here when the school wasn't even built yet. I have to tell you, I'm one of the few of my graduating class that have stayed in the restaurant business. A lot have changed in different careers, and a couple are here today, so thank you for coming. Billy, you're still short. What happened? I thought you'd be like 6'4" by now. No. And I still enjoy this business every day, and I've been in it almost 40 years now. My passion for this business has kept me here, and anyone who has the passion will make it if it doesn't kill you first. And I've had some friends of mine that it's killed. Well, most of my friends were protesting Vietnam, going on dates, or dating. This is the school, the way it was when it first opened. There I am. Can you believe that? I was working in a deli in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Is Cohen's. And the dean probably, do you know Is Cohen's? I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it was probably one of the bigger delis in Pittsburgh. And I was there, while all my friends were protesting, I was there slicing salami, making corned beef sandwiches. I bet you're all wondering how I ended up in Houston. I think Dr. Paul, he already ruined it for me, but I ended up in Houston. I was going to a junior college when I graduated high school, and a professor of mine, Ed Brown, suggested I look into four-year college, that being in Houston, Texas. I had never been to Texas before. I had never been out of Pennsylvania before, so I loaded up my stuff, got on a plane, and ended up here, and I interviewed with then Dean Taylor. I was offered a small scholarship, and here I was in Texas. Kind of a strange place to be, a kid from Pennsylvania. It was here that I met a lot of my lifelong friends. Morris Masters is here. Morris and I work with Rabbi Robert Ralston. Do we call you Rabbi now or Robert? Okay, Robert. He's very distinguished now. Nick Massad. And some of this said Bill Bennett. There, I still know you. You still look the same, right? And throughout my college years, I've had a variety of jobs. Those that are here, there we are in '99. You look a little different, right? Bill, you're there. There you go. Rabbi's there. Robert's there, excuse me. I worked at all kinds of places in Houston. When I was going to school, I worked at Steak and Ale as a waiter at Steak and Ale, and I was there for almost the full term that I went to school. Robert worked there as well.
Which store?
Gulf Freeway.
Gulf Freeway.
And I told some of my stories today, which I'll tell you in private, because I was such an excellent employee. I also worked at the Holiday Inn downtown Houston, which was the largest Holiday Inn at the time that the corporate owned, 603 rooms, which is now closed and empty. And I worked there in a variety of different jobs. I was a night auditor, and I worked as a restaurant manager, assistant restaurant manager, and room service, and service bar, and you name it. I kind of worked all the different departments over there. And I also worked, when I first came to school, in Alfred's Deli, which is now called Kahn's Deli. I guess Alfred turned it over to his son, Alfred Kahn. Did you know that? So these are kind of the things that I did when I was going to school here. But when we were, our graduating class, we had a speaker much like myself. His name was Ted Wright, and he was the general manager of the Marriott Hotel I don't even know what street it's on anymore, but it was where we had one of our first gourmet nights, which wasn't called gourmet nights. What was it called, Rabbi? It was called something of 1,000 nights. It was really gourmet night. He stood in front of us, and he was an old guy, I guess about 40 years old or so, much older than I am. And he told us one of the things that he would give us as we were sitting there is that we were getting in a great profession, being food service or hotel. And we should set our goals high, and one of those goals should be that we should try to earn in the salary range of the thousands of our age. As we were leaving school, we would probably start on an average salary $8,000 to $10,000, and I started a little more than that, or a little less than that actually. But we should try to set our goal. So by the time you were 25, you should be making $25,000. I know that sounds ridiculous right now, but at the time my dad was working for a department store as an executive and making $12,000, so that's how times have changed. Since graduating, I've had some great jobs, and I've been fortunate enough to work and met with some of the greatest people. After graduation, I accepted my first job with Interstate United, which was a food service company back then. I had worked with the company during my time in Pennsylvania to summer vacations, and they offered me a job right out of school, and they told me they would give me the location as soon as I graduated. And where did they pick, of all places? Lion Country Safari in Irving, Texas. Well, did I have a choice? They were going to pay me $9,600 a year. That was pretty darn good. So I packed up everything from Houston, moved to Dallas, ended up at Lion Country Safari. And it was probably one of the first jobs that I truly knew wasn't for me. After 3 long summer months in Dallas in my safari suit, driving a golf cart around delivering popsicles and hot dogs, I decided it wasn't for me, and this job just ate me up. So I had to get out of Dallas, so I loaded up my 1969 Chevy Chevelle, and I know what you're thinking about that, right? Morris, do you remember that?
What did you call it?
What did I call it? I don't remember what I called it. But did I keep this car? No, I should have kept it. You know what this car is worth today? And if it was in the shape that it was when I had it, probably $20,000 to $50,000. So I packed up my Chevy Chevelle, which I sold for $900. And I moved to Los Angeles, kind of like the Beverly Hillbillies. You loaded up your truck and you moved to Beverly, but I moved in my Chevy. When I arrived in Los Angeles, it was really difficult to find a job. Houston was much different than Los Angeles, and I called the school, and the professor, one of my professors then, Don Greenaway, who was really a father figure to most of us, got me in touch with a gentleman named John Mueller, and John was one of Professor Greenaway's students at Michigan State. John, being 21 years old or 22 years old, it was really not easy to get a job in Los Angeles. So John gave me my first job. I started with the Broadway department stores. There you go. And I was there about 6 weeks before, and as a manager trainee, and I got my manager trainee thing, and I still found that, believe it or not. And I was promoted to the manager of the Chafing Dish restaurant, one of their restaurants in Century City, California, near Beverly Hills. I stayed there for about a little less than 2 years, a little more than 2 years. And I was a 22-year-old starting there with a crew that was at least 30 years older than I was. I had 2 assistant managers, about 40 employees, a chef that was 40 or 50 years older than I was at the time. And they all had been there 10 years. But between all of their help, I was able to succeed. And within the first year that I was there, I was promoted as an area supervisor to 3 of their restaurants. It was there I really got my really tough boot camp training. But it was a great job. While I was at the Broadway, a recruiter called me that we were using, actually, Miriam Factor. And she introduced me to some operators of an up-and-coming restaurant company in Los Angeles, a small company with 7 restaurants called the Hungry Tiger Seafood Restaurants. And Morris worked there as well. So after 2 years, I left the Broadway and John Mueller to pursue my new career. Now, those of you that don't know the Hungry Tiger because it doesn't exist anymore, it was started by the Flying Tigers pilots from World War II. And how the company was started, these pilots were sitting in their local hangout in Los Angeles, and the bartender was telling them this would probably be one of the last nights that he'd be serving them. The restaurant would be closing, and they'd have to find a new hangout. They didn't want that to happen, so they decided to buy the restaurant. But what were they going to do with it? They didn't know. They weren't restaurateurs. They decided to hire the bartender as the manager, Wally Hollenstein. And they opened this new concept. But what were they going to do? These guys were most of them from the East Coast. And at California at that time, there was no such thing as live Maine lobster or fresh East Coast seafood. They owned an airlines then called the Flying Tiger Freight Lines. And it was a great way for them to go. They were going back and forth from East Coast. So they came up with their gimmick. Live Maine lobster, flown in daily. Is that the true story? Yeah, that's the true story. Okay. So, sorry. So I went to work for the Hungry Tiger. I worked 6 weeks in the Hollywood location. Wrong slide, sorry. I worked 6 weeks in the Hollywood location, which was on the corner of Hollywood and La Brea, and we met some really famous people. One of our regulars was Frank Sinatra. Well, after 6 weeks there in a job that I truly loved, and I thought I'd be there forever, where did they end up shipping me back to? Houston, Texas. Here I'm back in y'all's Texas again. So I arrived back in the newly opened Hungry Tiger on Gester and Westheimer. And for those of you that have ever been on Gester and Westheimer recently, now it's the home of Hooters. So And I just found that out. So just think I was working. The building's the same, I think, isn't it? I haven't seen it. So I joined the Hungry Tiger, and now I was making a salary of $13,500. So I was getting up there. Didn't quite make it yet, but I was getting there. Now, I know what you're thinking. I wasn't the Playboy bunny in Houston. Is that what you were thinking? No. I was dressed up for Easter. Remember those little, Morris remembers me as the Easter bunny. 3 months later, after coming to Houston, I was transferred back to Los Angeles, then back to Houston, then to San Francisco, then back to Houston, back to Los Angeles, back to San Francisco, back to Los Angeles. I became the company gypsy. It was the crazy late 70s, and Hungry Tiger was opening 6 to 8 restaurants minimally a year, and we're acquiring existing concepts and food service contracts. I was promoted to store opener, and I traveled all over for almost 2 years, opening restaurants all over California, Nevada, Texas, and even Tokyo, Japan. We opened 2 restaurants in Tokyo. And this picture here, I was a little younger then and a lot thinner, but you can see we got to Tokyo. It was so much different than anywhere that I'd ever been before. And then we opened a full-service bar. Well, these guys didn't know how to make a drink. They knew scotch and water, gin and tonic. So in this picture, we were teaching them how to make the newest drink out. Can you see what it says? At the very top of the board, a Long Island iced tea. So we were in a bar, and we were in a lab right then, teaching how to make drinks to these guys. They didn't speak English, and I had an interpreter with me. In 1978, Hungry Tiger acquired, as I mentioned, some food service contracts. And in 1978, we acquired the contract to run the Los Angeles Music Center, the home of the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, and then the Academy Awards. I worked at the Music Center as general manager, vice president, over 300 employees, with 3 restaurants, 8 bars, outside catering department, and a banquet department. We had the capability of serving 150 to 5,000 people on the plaza, and I had the honor of meeting many people, some actors and actresses. I just put the actresses parts in. Presidents. Does anybody even know who these people are? And then one of the greatest honors, we did a luncheon for the Queen. Now, I know what you're thinking. Most of these people are dead, right? Well, it had nothing to do with the food. Guaranteed. Now, here's a story. When I was in the Music Center, in 1980, New Year's Eve, the Music Center was holding a... What are you laughing about, Morris? He knows my life, right? This is my... 1980, we were at the Music Center. We were doing a fundraiser for the Stuttgart Ballet. It was a New Year's Eve night, and we were doing a party for 4,000 after that. During that period of time, the Music Center was trying to raise funds for the ballet and started a raffle. Well, as being part of one of the operating managers of the Music Center, I was asked to sell raffle tickets, and I'm certainly not a raffle ticket salesman. I had to sell $100 of $2 raffles. So I begged everybody that I could find. I sold $20, and I said, forget it, I don't have time for this. And I ended up buying the other $80 worth of raffle tickets. The prize being a Mercedes station wagon. So after I bought these tickets for probably 2 weeks, all I could dream was, if I don't win this Mercedes, I will never, ever drive a Mercedes. I've got to win. And I dreamt this, literally for weeks. I was telling us at a staff meeting that I was going to win the Mercedes, and everybody laughed. Oh, yeah, right, sure. They all thought I was a little crazy, as you probably figured out. I am a little crazy, but the day came, the Stuttgart Ballet did their performance. New Year's Eve was there. They went down, and we were behind the theater waiting for everybody to leave, and they said before the performance was completed and they were starting to start the New Year's celebration, they'd like to pull the drawing for the raffle ticket. Now, I know what you're thinking. What are you thinking? Did I win? I won, yay! I won the Mercedes in 1980. I was a single guy with a station wagon. But it was a Mercedes, though. This is the PR guy trying to steal it. He didn't get it. I ended up having it. I ended up actually having this car for about 10 years. I had to pay the taxes on it, so it wasn't that great of a deal, actually. I have to also tell you, I haven't won anything since then. Oh, yes, I did. I won a DVD about 2 weeks ago from a radio station for the Weatherman. That's my big win. As I mentioned, the company was growing, and we were acquiring food service contracts all over the city. We acquired a food service contract to run the J. Paul Getty Museum. And we bought an 18-unit chain of restaurants called the Lobster House. And I was involved with developing a new concept called the Breakers Seafood Company in Los Angeles. We opened 5 of these stores. I was 26 years old at the time, and I was making $26,000. I made it. Would you like to make $26,000 when you get to be 20? Hopefully not. While at the Breakers, I had a lot of fun. We developed this concept and grew it to 5 stores in a matter of about 2.5 years. I was called on to American Express to do a commercial. And there was a commercial that they had, Do You Know Me? And they picked out restaurateurs and owners of businesses all over the city. God, that's me? Oh, it's scary. And I did this commercial. It was a lot of fun. And to this day, I don't leave home without it. Hungry Tiger was growing, as I mentioned. We grew from 7 to 48 stores. I was made executive vice president of the company. And after 9 years in a company that had grown, was a publicly traded company doing over $80 million in business with 48 stores, as I mentioned. My bonus was greater than $28,000, and I was 28. So I truly had made it at that point in my mind. At the old age of 29 years old, I met my wife on my birthday. And within 6 months of meeting, we were married at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion Grand Hall. Morris, you're not in this picture. Who's in this picture? There's a couple. These are some of the students. I don't know if you guys ever met Greg Edwards. He's in the top picture there. Greg Edwards and Alfie Johnson. You guys know these people. Anyways, these are some of the students that came to my wedding. Grand Hall was quite the place then as well as it is today. We got married the night before the Academy Awards, which was pretty crazy. And within 1 year, our first son was born, Eric. I was working day in, day out, 7 days a week. And I wasn't sure how I was going to manage my life, as probably you're all figuring out, and have a family. And I was at a California restaurant show, and I met John Mueller. And if you remember, he was my first boss when I moved to Los Angeles. He said, "You want to have lunch?" We went to have lunch, and he said, "I have a great opportunity for you. Do you want to take a chance and change your career?" I said, "Well, tell me about it." I was going back to work for a department store company again. It was a 9-to-5 job, Monday through Friday, and I thought, hey, this is great. Wasn't so bad also, I got a 35% raise. So I was making way more than $30,000 then. So after 9 years, I left the Hungry Tiger, and I went to San Francisco once again, since I lived there many times, and I worked for a department store company, Emporium Capwell, which was part of Carter Hawley Hale and the company Broadway Department Stores in Los Angeles. We also owned Neiman Marcus, and I was in charge of the Neiman Marcus store in San Francisco as well. And I operated 33 restaurants, a deli in the downtown store, 7 wine shops, and had a great time. One of my favorite concepts I opened while I was there, because we were doing all different kind of concepts, it was the Outrageous Shop in Cupertino. It was a chance that I got to design my first restaurant, and I got a little crazy. So what we were going to call it, of course, would be outrageous. We made giant desserts and giant drinks and incredible sandwiches, and it truly was outrageous, and was probably one of my favorite places that I ever opened. But after working there about 2.5 years, I was totally bored. This 9-to-5 business was just not for me. Any of you that have worked in a restaurant, as you know, you don't work 9 to 5. And for me to work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, it wasn't working. I got a call from a restaurant designer that I worked with in Los Angeles, Ron Lieberman from Design Development. And he told me about a new opportunity that he knew of to come back to Los Angeles and open a chain, start and develop and open a chain of restaurants with somebody pretty famous. Does anybody know who this is even? Tommy Lasorda. Oh, it says it. That's pretty good. So I came to Los Angeles and I opened 2 restaurants for Tommy Lasorda. It was actually, the operating partner was from Canada, who was having a lot of personal problems as well as physical problems. And after a year there and opening 2 restaurants, totally stressed out, I was fired for my first time in my life and my career. Now what was I going to do? So what would you do if you were fired? Anybody know? You become a consultant, right? I was old then already. So now I pursued my new career as consultant. But what do you think an unemployed restaurant manager with now 2 boys building a brand new 5,000 square foot house in a suburb was going to do? Yeah, sure, I was a consultant. How was I going to find some jobs? Luckily, within 24 hours, I was called by a friend of mine, Joan Luther, who was our publicist at the Music Center, and said, I have an opportunity for you to meet someone for your first consulting job. So within 24 hours, I was already getting back to work again. It was unbelievable. And within 4 weeks, I had 4 jobs. I was really the consultant now. So I took on assignments, and these are some of the assignments, the first things that I ever worked on. I worked at the Sheraton Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. I developed and designed the bar down there. I did the operating system for Toscana Restaurant in Brent, which is still open today. I did a consulting franchise agreement for Mary's Pizza Shack in Sonoma, California, and I got involved with Louisa's Trattoria as a consultant. When Joan called me and told me about my first job, which is at Louisa's, I met with the owner, Bill Chait. Bill was a bright young man of 25 that had just graduated Berkeley School of Business and had opened 4 restaurants, never being in the business before. He had these 4 restaurants and he was losing a small fortune. He thought I was the seasoned restaurateur, now being 33 years old, and he hired me, believe it or not. I joined Bill in helping reorganize his company, one of these being Louisa's Trattoria. After working with him as a consultant for several months, we decided that we were going to convert 2 of his restaurants into the only concept that was making any sense into doing any business, Louisa's Trattoria. The first Louisa's was open in Santa Monica in the street called Montana Avenue, and at that time was doing over $2 million in business and was only a 1,600 square foot restaurant. Are you guys familiar how big is 1,600 square feet? This room is bigger than this is bigger than 1,600 square feet. So to do $2 million out of that kind of business was pretty crazy. Our wait ranged from 2 to 3 hours. We had no place for people to sit, so we would take their name, take their telephone number, and we'd call them at home when their reservation would come up. Those were really the crazy 80s. And people did it, actually. So could you come back in 2 hours? I know it's 6, but we'll call you at 8 and tell you when your table's ready. So here we had Louisa's, the only concept that it was working. And we started converting the restaurants he had. He had a 50s diner. Now the company didn't have a nickel at this point because he was losing so much. We took $10,000 out of cash flow that we didn't really have, and I mean it was not flowing, and we converted one of the Louisa's, the 50s diner that they had, and it opened with another instant success. But even with this turnaround, money was beyond tight, and it was hard for Bill to pay me, so he gave me some of his worthless stock and I became president of Louisa's. Also, Bill had leased a storefront in Larchmont Village, Hollywood, that he was intending to open as another concept that he was going to come up with, but couldn't afford to open it. He had already leased it and was paying rent on it, and he told me that I should absolutely go with him and let's open another Louisa's. You raise the money and we'll make it a franchise. Always taking risks, or some risks. I said this would be a great idea. I only had one problem. I needed $250,000. Small problem, right? After calling everybody that I possibly knew in the world, families, friends, private investors, I was able to raise $175,000. Fortunately. All came the last minute, by the way, but I was still short $75,000. So I had this brand new home that we were building. So what would you do? You just refinance it. You know, we lived in it for a month. So I refinanced my house, took every penny that I had, and came up with the additional $75,000. I sold 35% of my first restaurant, but I was now the proud owner of 65%, but it was my own. I opened Louise's Trattoria in Larchmont Village in 1987. This is my opening crew there. This is what it looks like today. It's still in business, believe it or not, almost 20 years later. And fortunately, it was an instant success. If not, I probably wouldn't be standing here today, but I'd probably be standing in the unemployment line because I had everything I had on the line with this. Louise's grew to 9 locations, and in 1993 was the highest grossing per square foot restaurant in Los Angeles and probably in the country at the time. In 1994, a group of investors approached us and asked us if we'd like to sell the company and offered us some ridiculous amount of money. And we sold Louise's and I sold my store. But during that time that I was with Louise's, I'd want to do my own concept. In 1992, I leased a space in an area in Calabasas, which was close to my home in Calabasas, California, which is north of Los Angeles. This restaurant would be my own restaurant with no investors and all my own money. Really scary. I wanted to do a restaurant that was a combination of all the things that I had learned from all the different restaurants that I had worked in over the years. And I developed a new concept, which I thought was new at the time, of California healthy fare with large portions, freshly prepared food, no freezers, always fresh, always homemade. What would we call this restaurant? And those of you that are going to open your own restaurant, you're going to have a fun time figuring out. We were going to call it Emblems. And that was for all the letter in my family's name, all my kids' names, and one extra because we had to figure out what to do with, how do we make it sound like emblems. Well, after a while and sitting on it for a while, that didn't work. So we ended up calling it Cosmos Grill and Rotisserie. Cosmos is still there, and it's an ever-changing, successful restaurant. And this is what it looks like today with the new logos. In 1996, I opened another restaurant. I had sold Louise's at that time, and I opened another restaurant. I was going to go into retirement, and I was way too young if I was, whatever I was. And I opened a new concept called Bacio Trattoria. Bacio was the same shopping center as Cosmos was. It was very similar to Louise's, but with a much more northern Italian feel and an old world atmosphere. While this restaurant was successful, it was not a great success, and it was more, as I say, an artistic success rather than a commercial success. Everybody get that? Okay. In 2004, I actually sold this restaurant to Bank of America, who wanted the space. So now it's presently at Bank of America as of about 2 years ago. And they're having their own artistic success there. In 2001, after being gone from Louise's for many years and had sold it in '94, I came back as the company had just gone through bankruptcy and it was about to go into its second bankruptcy. They called me back, they dug me out of the grave, and they asked me if I'd come back and be chairman of the board of the company and try to turn this thing around before it went into bankruptcy again. So in 2004, after 7 years of selling Louise's, I came back to Louise's again, and as I said, it was an ailing company that really needed a turnaround. I hired a gentleman, Rob Saratella, as our operations director, who's now the president. And we sold 5 restaurants. We kept the existing restaurants that were doing well, and we turned the company around somehow or another. And now, after 10 years, Louise's opened its first new restaurant this past April in an area right near my house, Westlake Village, which is a mile from my house. Very convenient. I'm still the chairman of Louisa's, but I don't have to go to work anymore there. Isn't that nice? That's what you have to look forward to. Be the chairman. This is a lot more fun than working every day. So that's a little bit of the Louisa's. This past October, crazy enough, I opened another new concept, Cafe Cosmos. Cafe Cosmos is opening in Temecula, California this last October. And it's a quick service version of my original Cosmos in Calabasas. The verdict is still out on this one, by the way. I also own and run a management recruitment and consulting business called CRC Placement. And to this day, I have had some of the opportunities to work with some big chains and large companies and some great experiences. These are some of the companies that I do recruitment for. I have a small office also in Calabasas near my home, and I have a staff of 2 people and myself that do recruitment, and we place about 60 managers a year. So you can see all the fun things I've been doing. I've interviewed and found managers for restaurants and chefs. Over my career, I've consulted hundreds of employees and working professionals on their way up and a few of them on their way down. I have to tell you that one thing that all successful restaurant managers have, and all successful managers that I've worked with, is they love what they do. And that's really something important that you guys need to know. Well, I know what you're thinking. This guy doesn't have a life at all. He does his work every day, right? Well, I do. But I do have fun also. On my spare time, I like going boating. I actually wakeboard now. I'm one of the oldest wakeboarder on the lake. These are my kids here. That's Eric, Mark, Zachary, Brian, my wife, Lindy. And I know what you're thinking. What are you thinking? Anybody? Well, that's not me. You're right. Okay. It was pretty good, though. A good Photoshop, huh? That's what I'd like to be doing. No, I don't think I could handle that. I don't wakeboard like that. I'm sorry. I also, in my spare time, I'm Pierre, the painter. I enjoy painting with acrylics and oil painting. These are some of my paintings here. I actually did a juried show last year. I haven't sold anything. I've had a lot of commissions for free, but maybe I'll get you a free commission. So I actually have 5 commission pieces that I'm working on right now. They're not paid commission pieces, but... And I also write a restaurant review column when I get some spare time in the local paper under the pseudonym name of Marty B. And you'll never know when I'm at the table next to you. That's what it says over there, right? His appearance is kept secret. He could be at the table next to you. When asked about, and what I'm supposed to be talking about, what it takes to be successful, I think success can be described in many ways. Sometimes success in business comes from an artistic standpoint, but not necessarily financial. Now that you know probably a little too much about me, I want to tell you what I feel my keys of success have been over the years. And I believe in business you're successful if you've achieved what you've set out to do, not necessarily what other people think you should do. Looking back at my career, as I mentioned, these are the things that I think are important. Your education. You're all here today, so obviously you're getting your education. So you've got the very first part of what I think is part of success. As I mentioned before, passion and loving what you do. Guys, if you don't like what you're doing, don't get into it. I know you're all here at school. I have a son that just graduated as an engineer. Now he's not sure he wants to be an engineer anymore. But love what you're doing, and I told him, if he doesn't like it, get out of it now while he's young. Try and do things that you want to really, that you enjoy and you really like to do. Take some risks, and I've taken many risks over my time, and I just thought of a story more. So we had a guy named Alan Red who was our operating guy, right, an English guy. And I remember when I was in Houston as general manager, and I came here, and I was all of, I don't know, 25 or 4 at the time. The restaurant wasn't doing so great. It was a great restaurant, but it wasn't doing that great. So I decided I would do something on my own, and I put a $9.95 Maine lobster ad in the Houston Post, without anybody knowing, of course. I put the ad in, and which is a little problem. They would get the bill eventually and they'd figure it out. But so I put the ad in the paper. Our sales increased like crazy. And we didn't get many visits from Los Angeles, so I figured I could get away with it for a while. So they were saying, wow, your sales are coming up. You're doing great. You know, Alan shows up, checks in his hotel room as a surprise visit, and opens the Houston Post, and guess what he sees? The $9.95 lobster ad that I put in there that I wasn't supposed to. I took a risk. He came to the restaurant and said, he said, I happen to notice this little ad in the paper here. Who gave you permission to do that? So I took the risk. He said, let me tell you, the next time you ever do anything like that, you're going to be fired. The next breath he said, you know what? Good job. So sometimes it pays to take a risk. Being persistent, and those that know me, I'm just a little bit on the persistent side. I really usually don't give up. Somebody says you can't do it, I say, yeah, I'll make a way to do it. I'll find a way somehow or another to do it. So be persistent, but love what you're doing, and work really hard, because this is the important time of your lives when you're young. Next thing is being nice and working well with others. We're in a hospitality business. We're in a business of people. If you're not nice, you're not going to make it. No way, no way, no way, no way. Be nice. People will remember you on the way. Build your relationships. And as you've probably heard through today, and I never realized how many relationships that I've built my career on. Most of my jobs over the years have been through people that I've worked with or worked for. And they've all of the jobs that I've had have always been given to me, or the opportunities that have been presented to me by people that I've worked for in the past or worked with in the past. So that's really an important thing. Build your relationships. If you are nice, you're certainly going to build some relationships, but build those relationships. One of the most important, hire the right people. You know, all of us work, or some of you may have worked in a restaurant or in a hotel. The people in those situations, whether it be a waiter or a busboy, they make you look good or bad. You can have 30 or 50 or 100 employees. If you have one bad one, they might as well all be bad, because they represent you every day, because you can't be in every corner and in every part of the business every single day. So it's important to hire the right people. Oops, sorry, 2 clicks. Give back. One of the important things that I've learned over my life is not only to work hard, but give back to your community. Get involved in your temple or your church. Get involved in feeding the homeless if that's what you like to do. But get involved. When you have kids. Most of you don't have kids, I would guess. No? But when you do have kids, get involved with their lives and give back a little to the community. Get involved with the PTA. Have a good time. You're not only building the community and yourself up, but you're making connections and meeting people that are going to help you build your career. Use your talent and creativity. We all have it, believe it or not. I even have a little bit of talent, and I'm a little creative. But everybody has a different amount of talent and creativity, but we all have it. Use what you've got, know what you've got, and develop it. And last but not least, put on a big smile and have fun what you're doing, and enjoy every day working in this business. It really is a fun business. Sometimes it's not so fun, but for the most part, it really is a lot of fun. Those are my keys to success. But don't blame your lack of success on your lack of talent. It will be your attitude that will certainly determine your altitude, not your talent or lack of it. Now I know what you're thinking now. There I am. What are you thinking? Anybody know what are you thinking? What are you thinking? Are you awake? Okay. Did I put you to sleep yet? What are you thinking of this picture? Huh? That's what? That's my car. It's not my plane. But I did go on the plane. Another Photoshop trip. This is not my plane, but have a good time. You've heard all my keys now, and this is really what I think is the keys to success, or your first key to creating your own success is your education. You have the first key that you're going to walk away with when you graduate here. My suggestion, you got your key now, and make your own keys to success and have a great time doing it. And thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. Now, before I do anything, I have one thing I've got to do. There is one person that is sitting in my chair right now. When this room was built, all the students were asked if they would donate some large sum of money. I think it was $25, right, or something, $50. And there's someone that's sitting in my chair right now. I have a chair. Can anybody know where my chair is at? That's my chair. Do you know you're sitting in my chair? Are you honored or what? So, because you're sitting in my chair, and you can't wear this if you go to Hooters, by the way. So, I'm giving you you got a Louisa's Focaccia shirt. And thank you for honoring me sitting in my chair. I've never sat in it, actually, but...
We have time for 2 questions.
That's it? 2 questions. Hurry up, fast questions. Yes.
You said when you were young, you got the advice that you should be making whatever decided your age. What would you suggest for us?
That's a good question. Let's see. I'm an old guy. I'm over 40 now. You know, I don't know what... I'm assuming when you graduate school, you're going to probably make somewhere around 40 to 60,000. Is that pretty much it? 80, 70, 30? I don't know. What do you... Seriously, I don't know what... The age thing's still working? You're going to make 25,000 when you're 25? I hope not. What is a starting salary these days? 30,000 or so? 35,000? You need to come to California. We make more, but you spend it all. So then, you know, that's actually a really good question. I would probably think, you know, it's certainly double that, if nothing else. So, you know, if you're 25, I would hope you're making closer to 50,000, because the world has changed just a little bit. My car, by that way, the car I bought, that car brand new at $1,800. So that tells you the times have changed a little bit. Yeah, do you want to? I want to buy that car back. Yeah. Marry the right spouse. I will tell you, you know, over the years, and I've seen so many of my friends that have gotten married and worked in this business have got divorced because they're not up front. When they get married and when you find you're the person you're going to make your lifelong partner, they've got to understand this is a crazy business and you're going to work a lot of hours. When I left the Hungry Tiger, because I was working a bazillion trillion hours every day of the week, I thought the 9-to-5 job was for me, and I thought it would be great for my family, which it was. But I couldn't handle it. I just couldn't take the 9-to-5. It was, I went bazonkers. I was like, okay, now what do I do? It's the weekend. What am I supposed to do now? I think I'll go to work. Oh, it's not open. Okay, now what do I do? I'll go in anyways. I'll figure something to... So it's a hard one. You pick the right partner and make sure everybody knows up front what it's all about, because I know too many of my friends that have gotten divorced over the years. Questions from you?
That's it.
Nick. Hello, Nick. How are you doing?
A lot of students, when they graduate and they go into a management position, all the people that they're supervising are older than them sometimes. And you mentioned that. How did you handle that? How did you get all those seasoned people to respect you, and you're just a kid?
Well, you know what, I think there's a couple things that I think. One of those things is that I was probably the first person they had worked with a college degree in hotel restaurant management, so they thought that was pretty cool. You know, and I was I knew everything, but you know, I didn't know that much, but I thought I knew a lot. A lot of it was just being nice to people. I mean, and I've said this, you know, I can't tell you over my career, and I'm obviously I talk a lot and I'm a little bit friendly, but I will tell you, my success, I will tell you, most of it is personality. And I think most of the people in this industry, it's personality and hard work. If you're nice to people, they want to work with you. If you're a total maniac, they certainly don't want to do it. And they don't want to work, not only they don't want to work with you, they won't do anything for you. So it's important that you find the people that you like with and hang out with them for a while. Don't jump jobs around. I mean, I interview people every day of the week now, and I get these resumes from chefs that have been in 5 restaurants in the last 3 years, and it's like, okay, where am I going to find them a job? So don't jump around a lot. It's really hard. If you find the job you like to begin with. The first one may not be the one you want to be in, but find the first job that you think you're going to like and hopefully stay with. And if it's not right, get out of it quickly and move on to the next thing. But try to, when you're doing an interviewing process, make sure that you get a company that you think you're going to be able to stay with for some time. Not a year, not 2 years, but maybe 5 years or 6 or 8 or 10 years. And develop your career. Companies that bring on students now, they may not pay you as much as they should, but you're learning. It really is your next step of your education, is learning from these companies. And Hungry Tiger was a great company for me. I mean, the reality is I would have never hired myself and put myself in the position at 26 years old that I was in. You know, Morris, we were managers of a store when we were in our early 20s, and right now, if I interview manager 20, I go, they're not ready to be a manager yet. They're too young. The opportunities were a little different then, but they're still the same. So one of my suggestions is don't jump around too much. Find the job and the company you like with it and have a good time with it. It really is a fun business. Obviously, I love it. I've been doing it for way too many years now. And hopefully they'll be rolling me out in the, okay, one more table to seat and then you can push me out the door. And I only have 10 more years left on my one restaurant lease, so at that point maybe I'll back it up and I'll open another restaurant. Any more questions?
That was the last one, Mr. Breverman.
Oh, he's pushing me out. I've been telling him stories all day. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, you're welcome to come up.
Don't go yet.
Oh, don't go yet. Oh, here's another thing.
Classes don't start till 11:30.
Oh, then we have another 20 minutes for talking.
We'd like to take this opportunity and present you with a plaque from the college, the Conrad and Hilton College, University of Houston, Marty Breverman, Eric Hilton Distinguished Chair Alumni Series, April 6, 2006, signed by our Dean John Bowen and Clint Rappold.
Who's that? Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you very much. I got to tell you, I'm really honored to be here, and he's kicking me off now. So yes, don't stay.
Keep back up.
Yes.
Don't look around. Now you have to have faith.
Okay.
You have faith.
Sure.
You have trust.
Sure. You're going to throw me down or something?
Now you're supposed to sit down. Don't look. You're supposed to sit down.
Okay. And I'm not allowed to talk anymore? How fancy. Thank you. Thank you all.
This chair for you, it's for the Eric Hilton Distinguished Chair Lecture Series, and this, you'll be getting a model of this.
About this big?
Yes.
Well, this butt will not fit into the model of the chair, right? Will it?
If anyone would like to come up and talk with Mr. Breverman, please feel free to do so, and obviously you're welcome to come to this session this afternoon. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you all for coming.